point right now, quite frankly, personally, I'm not impressed with what's going on. So I'm just being straight with you, and I'm just being upfront, and I'd like to see a little bit more productivity if we're going to continue our relationship. Okay? Because I'd really like to see the city of Floresville and the FEDC get its money's worth.
And can you have that same conversation with whomever should have been here?
Yes,
tonight
Mr.
or not
Farmer.
here?
Yeah, I don't know
Yes.
why he didn't, he just told me that Mr. Cofer would be corresponding with me, communicating, but we'll tie up all those loose ends, Mayor.
To make
soon.
sure, because that's an excellent suggestion, we need to make sure that it goes back to the right person.
Okay, great.
Not that you're not the right person, but
No, I understand.
it needs to be conveyed from him to that individual.
Oh, I agree 100%, and I would love for us to
Great.
kind of move on from this and get on a phone call sometime and kind of go through everything with Aaron. My boss
Okay.
wasn't available.
And just briefly, tell me a little bit more about your GIS system. The Texas Economic Development Foundation, and I'm going to be providing some information to expand on that later. That particular information is we need it because we need to have a system that can, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for a system to track our properties, make sure we know exactly where they're at and what condition they are in, and what they're selling for the dollar value that they're asking for. So that when I present this to a potential corporation or a business to come in under the retention, then I want to be able to tell them, we have this location here, we have this location here, this is what it possibly would sell for, and so I need to make sure that we don't duplicate our services if we're already in contract with you. And I'd like to see, if possible, a detailed contract that you have with us, not this right here where it just stipulates, just general terms. I need to have the performance clauses in there in which you have, so I know exactly what your duty is to perform, and then ours in turn, okay? So the GIS system, expand that for me a little bit. Tell me, what is it that specifically stands out that we could utilize that as a tool for what I just explained to you on land retention and property inventory?
So exactly. So we'll be able to actually lay in on a map of the community specific areas that are available.
Okay? And how are you gonna do that? Are you gonna communicate with the real estate agents, or are you gonna go directly to
And
the
as
owners?
well, and our contact as well. If y'all have some sort of list already, said, hey, this is available, this is what you need to.
Okay. Actually, they don't, so that's what we
Okay.
need. We need to figure out if your GI system is going to be conducive and comparative enough for us to be able to utilize for that particular tool so we can inventory our property. That's most important, because we cannot go out and market without having an inventory of what we have
Exactly.
and the value of that property,
Mhm.
so that we can make a decision based on that information as to what kind of incentives we can offer to that entity.
Yeah,
Because
there's a lot of
otherwise-
there's a lot of properties in.
Yeah,
but then
we don't
a lot
wanna
of them
give
won't
away-
Sell though, there's
Yeah.
only land leases,
And I will be
40% of them.
diligently looking at their background. I'll conduct due diligence on the companies to make sure they perform like they said they're gonna tell us they're gonna perform. Because if we're gonna give them an abatement, we better make darn sure that they're gonna do what they say they're gonna do. Because otherwise, we're just throwing our money away to them. So I want you to help me partner that
Yeah.
if you're gonna continue in our relationship.
Definitely.
Okay, great, thank you. So yeah, that covers everything I got, Mr. President.
But it's some lights.
Okay, yes, sir. Lights over here. Any questions from anybody else, maybe?
Close your eyes, man.
Any other questions for Kyle?
No.
Moving along to item B, Georgia Chamber of Commerce, please.
Okay, our Christmas event was held last Friday. Turned out great. The only expenditure off of the one that you had before, and I brought you extras to pass those around. Hope I have enough for everybody. Expenditures were the same,
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you.
just an addition of a kiddie train that was $495. Big hit all around the courtyard. Then the shed, utility shed to put the tree in and the decorations for a 12 by 16 utility shed warranted for life, $3,835. Ms. Turner and I are going to be walking the,
Here you go. Do you have another one?
Where's that
Do you
shed
have
gonna
another
go?
one?
No, I'm good.
Maybe go make some copies real quick.
Where's that shed gonna be located at?
It'll be located at the wastewater treatment
Okay.
plant. So we'll have access to it. Right now, we have a storage unit that's only a 10 by 12. Those will hold the tree
No, that's
at
good.
$100 a month, so that would be cheaper to put all that stuff into. Okay. Any other questions? There'll be about $933 left, and I'm still looking at end of the year decorations that are 50% off.
Yeah, maybe moving forward, I like to, I kind of talked to Danny about that night. You did, that was, it's all good. What can we do to better plan to like next year, to expand upon it, so we're opening up maybe like some trees, like the top of the buildings? That's something that, did you get any feedback from
Okay,
anyone?
we've discussed that once before.
Yeah.
You can't light the top of the buildings
Well-
because that belongs to the building owners.
Well, we
and it's their
can, 'cause-
responsibility, not ours.
No, so as we do the easement with the sidewalks, maybe get an get a.
That's y'all's problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but once we get it, that's something. The more worries, right?
Any other questions? Yeah, that wouldn't be anything we would be doing.
Yeah,
That-
no,
that's-
we understand.
that's-
No, that's fine.
Any questions for the chamber?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. Like Ben had said, I also mentioned it to Johnny, see what we can do to expand on this year's event. It seemed like it brought a lot of people into the downtown area. But what can we do
Yeah.
to make that a bigger and better attraction for outside visitors?
Yeah, like light up the trees like in the past, or, I'm still gonna stick with the top of the buildings, because those lights, they
It
stay
was
on year
done like
round.
that before.
Yeah, and I know we go back to the old way. I talked to Luana Noonan, she said they had an agreement back then with the building. This is how we can find that, but, I go down there, I've been to the movies twice, and I've seen multiple families taking pictures at night still.
A lot of them take pictures of the tree.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably been one of the most Facebook things that I've seen, but as far as if we're gonna bring our downtown during this time of the year,
I attended the burning parade this year, and every single business is required to decorate.
Yes,
Wow.
Yeah, and I know that they had a contest, and that was a big hit. I've seen it downtown lit up more than I've ever seen it probably since I've been
Yes.
back home the last 5 years. So, if we can continue on that momentum moving forward, just not saying that y'all's responsibility, how can we partner together, continue to bring ideas, saying like, maybe what I was more asking, like, it was people asking them, how can we grow it to make it a more successful, but, light up I saw the little soldiers right there, light up that building, maybe get with the county, and, I saw one courthouse, they had lights down the whole courthouse.
Yeah.
How can we better
Everything is lit
work
up.
together and
Everything.
light up, we were in green.
We used to do the courthouse.
No, we used to light the trees, remember with the colonel, we had,
Okay, the problem with that is there's no electricity on the outside of the courthouse.
yeah, so we
It's a
kept to
problem,
bring it,
but
so
we used
just
to
so we
do
can
that.
fix it, if we just work
It
with
was
it.
more expensive, but it was worth it.
Does anybody have any Phelps board members by chance?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I did mention them, but I
I don't
didn't see
know.
any out there.
Yeah.
Abstain?
I abstain.
Yeah, this is definitely, I would suggest also you add a parade in,
The work-
Get back the old parade that you used to have.
And a parade with everyone having music on it.
Right, and
Because
you
no
have some
music
Christmas
is
caroling.
No parade.
And different sides of the
Some real
corner.
snow.
Yeah.
And then you have a little entertainment venue,
Yeah.
maybe a one-piece guitar player to somebody playing something, so we can make it conducive for people from out of town and say, wow, let's go to Floresville.
Mhm.
And then also for the community, they loved it.
Everybody loved
And
it.
I'll-
I mean, I
I'll
can tell
bring
you,
it up
we
today
went in
more.
at Trail Riders right afterwards, had to go and
Mhm.
do things, that place was packed.
It was, yeah, so it brings in the
I know,
business.
I forget, not Trail, went to the Floresville Cafe, and that place,
Oh, it was
Floresville
open?
Cafe, it was open, and it never was open on that night during the week, so that just bringing more stuff. So,
Maybe you could do a survey afterwards, and find out, get some input. Did you really like it? How did you, give it to the businesses and people that maybe are there? You might give them the forms while they're on the actual grounds and say, hey, would you do us a favor? It's important for our funding, almost like the census. It's important for our funding. If you could just fill this out, it'd be great. I can bring this to the FEDC and we're gonna continue.
And it
to
helps
fund
the
and stuff
chamber,
like
because they
that.
know that the FEDC is backing the businesses through that contact.
Right.
It's not, we're not working apart from each other, but working together.
So our budget next year won't be nearly as much as this. That tree's gonna last, 10 years?
But next year, we don't have to redo electrical, it costs $23,000.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Where are we gonna store it, by the way?
You're buying a shed.
We have to buy a shed.
Okay, good. One just quick note, again, it's my responsibility to keep you out of liability. When you mentioned the fact we tell all the business owners that they have to do it, we have to be careful with that in my past experience because I've dealt in liability issues a lot. You might have a person whose religious beliefs don't equate or they don't align with that. So
We'll
we have-
excuse him.
Yeah, we'll excuse them, exactly.
You can abstain.
But, you know, maybe they can participate in another matter, but just to let you know, just to be
But I think
careful.
respect for everybody.
Yes, we do, and so we just do that. We respect everybody that is out there and make sure it's equally
I hadn't thought
opportunity.
about that. I mean,
Okay.
I just thank you.
Yeah, and that's where my job
Yeah.
is. Well, if I see something that's an exposure item there, definitely bring it to your attention so that we don't overstep our bounds.
Maybe I can get the verbiage on how Bernie used it.
Well, maybe
Okay, yeah.
can we talk to
You
Internet?
can suggest.
Yeah.
Can we talk to Internet? She's already getting the approvals for the sidewalks.
Okay.
So there's no reason to double dip. So if she's getting approval to the sidewalk, can we do approval, say, hey, we wanna redo your sidewalk? Can we have maybe put lights on top of your roof? So if we're already going around getting that for this ADA sidewalk, we're already in backing. Maybe while she's talking to you, she goes, hey, do you mind if we put some lights on the top if we put some electricity? You know?
I
I
agree with
think
that.
once, I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm
No, no,
sorry, Mayor.
no, no.
Go ahead, please.
No, I was just agreeing with them.
What about some type of, maybe like, I don't know if it's feasible, but some type of incentive program or something for the local business owners to wanna?
That's what we did this year.
Okay.
Yeah, we did the
What was
$1,000
We did
reward for the
$1,000
Christmas lights.
prize for the decorating,
Now,
$750 first.
I'm gonna turn around and ask our colleague here, Mr. Griggs, if you can speak with, and maybe we can hold a meeting down over, if you could speak with your newspaper to help us during that time or the activities we're doing, to like, we come up with some other wordy, catchy ideas that you can help us get more people in, by getting it out as much as possible. Not just maybe once, maybe 2, 3, 4 times maybe, something like that. Talk to them, see what the cost factor might be, where it won't cost us that much, but that would be your donation to the community as well.
Greg, your head's nodding the wrong way.
Not to put you on the spot.
I'm just thinking, downtown, but if you go down 181, they have the same lights when I was like 5 years old. They're still up there. They don't come down. They stay year round because they're
Yeah.
too brittle to take up and down. They just stay there. So, I mean,
And while you're on that, work with the.
Right?
ask
And
the
the stars
schools-
are still there?
ask the
Yeah,
schools
well,
if
ask
they
the
can provide
schools.
the band,
Yeah,
because
later on,
we
we'll
don't have the
engage
band.
all of that. We'll get everybody in the
And I
city.
think we
and the
should start like in
components.
January, start planning.
Yeah, we should start like
Start
planning.
tomorrow.
Keep the momentum.
Yeah, and appoint a chairman to do it, so it give me more work.
Starting Friday.
And then on the
I
March.
mean, because if you do the light stuff,
And the March, we can do
Okay.
like the
Mr.
voting
Chairman,
rights,
Mr.
everybody.
Then you
Ready.
I think they've been waiting patiently.
Oh,
Okay, sounds good.
Next,
Item number C, local businessman, Mr. Dalen James, owner of Southern Rain LLC. Rainwater harvesting presented a plan for a possible joint educational event with the Forest Economic Development Corporation and Southern Rain LLC in Floresville, Texas.
And just a quick correction, his last name is actually Riley, his middle name is James. So he's still a James, but he's Riley. Mr. Dylan James Riley.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me tonight. I'm here tonight with my wife Jennifer Riley. She's actually a business owner here in Floresville. She owns the Hair Salon by Jenny in the Blue Casa Village off of 181. I'm here today to talk to you about rainwater collection. My company is Southern Rain, and I'll just give you a basic overview of what rainwater harvesting is and how I believe it can benefit this community.
Tell them why it came about, Dylan, real quick, how this came about, our idea of bringing this to the board.
I
Give 'em a little
originally,
history.
I was introduced, actually, Mr. Lambert's wife is a client of my wife's, and she gave me the idea to come to the FEDC to try to apply for a facade grant. After meeting with Mr. Rodriguez, we decided that the facade wasn't necessarily the grant that I needed to be targeting because I am operating out of my home at the moment, which isn't technically a business front. So we come up with the idea to possibly go on a joint venture together to come up with an educational campaign, an educational plan to try to educate the community more so on rainwater harvesting and water conservation for the community. So on the agenda today, I'm just going to touch on the basics of rainwater harvesting, why we should harvest rainwater, the economic benefits and incentives today in Texas for rainwater harvesting systems. I'll then touch on the astonishing water demands in Wilson County. After doing my research, I found some pretty outstanding numbers, and how I believe the FEDC can help Southern Range support this initiative. Rainwater harvesting is an ancient old method of water conservation. As you can see in these pictures, this has been around for thousands of years. However, with today's technology, we're able to capture rainwater stored in modern-day cisterns and create potable water for whole house use, making residential homes, allowing them to have their own sole source of water. And the basic definition of rainwater harvesting: when rain falls from the sky, it lands on a catchment surface, most commonly the roof of your home. It is then captured by a gutter system and then just diverted into a water storage tank, where the water is then purified and filtered and sent back to the home as potable water for whole house use. First step in catching and collecting rainwater is the catchment surface. Metal roofs on residential homes, clay shingle roofs on residential homes are optimal for obtaining potable water. Asphalt shingle roofs do work, however, it's typically more often used for irrigation purposes outdoor due to the manufacturing processes that take place on shingle roofs and the chemicals injected. We install a gutter system on the entire horizontal roof line of a residential home. This is typically used for water diversion and erosion control, however, it is a key component in rainwater collection. We pre-screen all of our gutters, preventing any organic materials such as leaves and larger particles from entering the water system. Then we implement a second stage of pre-screening, a pre-screen basket located on the downspouts of the home. This contains a 100 micron pre-screen basket, filtering out any debris or any organic material any larger than the diameter of a human hair in size from entering the water system, creating a sealed source. Let me go back, I'm sorry. Here you can see a couple examples of some water catchment systems we've installed in the hill country. The gutters are pre-screened, and as you can see, the downspout are pre-screened as well, creating a sealed water source. This takes us to the next stage in the water collection movement. The water is, after it's captured and pre-screened with the downspouts, it's then diverted through underground piping into a water storage tank, and a water storage cistern is what we call it. These are some examples of some systems that we've installed in the hill country, the Texas hill country. If you've ever driven through the hill country, these may look familiar to you. I don't know if any of you have ever seen any of these before, but the Texas hill country is actually leading the way in Texas for water conservation and rainwater collection. It's very similar to a system that my father installed as a rainwater harvester in the Texas hill country on our home. Nearly 15 years ago, it has supplied a sustainable water source for our home, a family of 6 for the last 15 years, including the 2008 drought. Our water cisterns are delivered and built on site, starting with the concrete ring foundation. We erect our tanks, we hang a potable PVC liner inside the cistern containing the water. We then build a pump house that houses and stores all of the filtration and purification methods necessary to generate potable water. Filtration and purification stage is actually fairly simple. Rainwater falls from the sky naturally, fairly clean. Really the only treatment methods required are to reduce the sediment and the dust particles that it captures from the roof of your home. First, implement an aeration treatment into the water storage system once the water has been captured and stored. By injecting air into the water storage tank, it creates a healthy biology by causing a turning effect in the water storage tank, and in turn helping the water stay safe to drink. The thing passes through a 3-stage commercial grade filtration system, starting with a 10 micron sediment filter, filtering out any remaining dust particles that may be in the water. It then passes through a 5 micron carbon block filter, removing any odor it takes from the water. Then the water passes through the third and most important stage, it's a UV treatment, ultraviolet light. This filters out any and all remaining contaminants or impurities in the water, bacteria. It kills at 99% efficiency. The economic benefits and incentives today in Texas on rainwater harvesting systems. Rainwater harvesting reduces the demand on public water systems. It reduces demand on our aquifers. It can lower or even eliminate the water bills for the consumers. And Texas today, there's several cities in Texas that offer rebates for rainwater harvesting systems when they're installed to the consumer. Austin's a big one. They offer rebates of 50 cents on the gallon to $1 on the gallon to the consumer if they install a rainwater harvesting system on their home in the city limits. Texas is a rainwater harvesting tax exempt state. Any equipment used in the state of Texas is actually tax exempt for rainwater harvesting to the consumer. This creates an incentive for the consumers to purchase rainwater and move towards a water conservation minded culture. Texas property code states that no homeowners associations or regulations can be made on rainwater harvesting catchment systems in the state of Texas. Homeowner associations can't restrict someone from installing a rainwater collection system in a development. And the Texas House Bill 3391 actually states that any new state building exceeding 2,000 square foot in size, or 10,000 square foot in size, must have some sort of rainwater harvesting system implemented into the design of the building before construction begins. This slide to me says 1,000 words. The Wilson County water demands, I'm sure you all know the demands on our water systems here in Wilson County. The average consumer uses 90 plus gallons of water per day. With Wilson County's population, that's 4.4 million gallons of water per day that we're pulling just for residential use alone. With 3.5% annual population growth in Wilson County since the year 2000, we can expect to be pulling nearly 6 million gallons of water from our aquifers by the year 2025. It's just six short years from now. That's gallons per day, just for residential use alone. How can rainwater collection help? You can expect to catch at least 625 gallons of water per 1,000 square foot of roof surface with just 1 inch of rain. The average home size in Texas is 2,500 square foot. Wilson County's annual rainfall of 28 inches per year, that's approximately 44,500 gallons of water that your average home in Texas will catch in a year's time. Doesn't sound like a lot of water, but with 15,000 plus homesteads in Wilson County, housing at least 3 people per household, I believe in the next 5 years, if we can capture just 20% of these homes, we can decrease our water demand by nearly 810,000 gallons of water per day. So our rainwater collection will help Floresville. Rainwater collection, I believe, will enhance Floresville's economic development by decreasing our demand on our water supplies. It allows room for growth, allows room for population and growth, and in turn bringing more people to our economy. It will accelerate community awareness and create a conservation culture. Position Floresville as a leader on the water. It could potentially position Floresville as a leader of the water conservation movement in South Texas. And it can also enable home builders and construction sites to offer not only a unique but a sustainable alternative to municipal water supplies. I added this to the slide. Ms. Turner actually introduced me to this newsletter that you guys released back in June and July on water conservation. Second tip on the water conservation newsletter states that we need to be collecting rainwater for landscapes and in turn using this for, we can go beyond just landscapes and irrigation. We have the ability to turn rainwater into potable water and use its whole source use, pulling the house completely off of a municipal water supply and pulling them out of the aquifer. The water is eventually going to make it back to the aquifer once the consumer is done using it. Our septic systems naturally flow back into the ground. They go back in, whether it be well water, municipal water, however. But I believe if we don't pull the water from the aquifer and we're not pulling it from our water source, and we can eliminate or reduce the demand on our water supplies, rainwater collection is an option to do that in a safe alternative. I believe that the FEDC can help Southern Rain with this movement by helping us to establish some sort of an educational campaign. We need to help spread the awareness and importance of water conservation in Wilson County. We can do this with something as simple as helping us to generate a roadshow or a display, if you will, or a booth that we can set up and take to schools, educate the future generations to come on water conservation and rainwater harvesting. We can even set it up at the Peanut Festival, HEB parking lot, just to educate the population and let them know what water conservation is and what rainwater harvesting is and how it can help the community. Billboards and social media are also great alternatives to marketing. I'm not very fond of marketing skills. That's why I'm here in front of you guys. I know that the Economic Development Board knows how to get in touch with the right people and put us in front of the right people to to help us make that happen. The biggest educational impact we can have on this community is that Floresville is the first to step up and move towards a conservation-minded culture by possibly even installing a rainwater collection system on one of our public buildings here in town. I believe that would kickstart this water conservation movement and establish a conservation-minded culture in this community. That's all I have in this presentation. If anybody's got any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Let there be light.
You got it? So, just a quick history, like you mentioned. What happened was, Henrietta had, Ms. Turner, our city manager, had placed the facade application in my desk among the others that I had. And I thought, you know, it's my principle, just go out and look at all these places at once to make sure that they are what they say they are. And she didn't have a lot of information other than what she gave me. So when I went to meet this young man, you know, I went to his home and he immediately provided me with a biography of the company and what he wanted to do. And I was impressed by his initiative. I was impressed by the fact of his age, and that he had a small family. And I remembered when I was a young businessman, starting out. And he had a lot of ideas that he wanted to come across, but he didn't know how to formulate and organize them in the sense of how to approach FEDC. He had his business plan, his idea, but the idea of how do I get partnership with helping. So this is where my Edwards Aquifer Authority training came in. I told him, I said, look, instead of looking at it from a way, and this is our job, this is what we do as an FEDC board, if you're a FEDC director, we look for other alternatives. We just don't close the door on somebody. We try to find an alternative option to help them because they're hungry, they want to work, they want to produce, and they want to add income to our community. So that totally sold me that I needed to come up with some ideas to help them. So I immediately told him that the best opportunity to be able to convey his message was in an educational format. If he was to produce a PowerPoint presentation and we discuss some of the items as we begin to kick it around, is what would be more appropriate on an educational format. And we began talking about, what about this? Yes, and look at this. And he asked me, well, Mr. Rodriguez, what about if I get the question that they ask me and they say, well, you know, if you're not taking money or water out of the aquifer, the water resource, then how do I substantiate that to defend it because they're not making money by charging the rate for the water pumped out and used?
That was my first thought.
And then what I told them is the conservation effort in itself will pay for it because you are drawing out less resource from the actual source. And this is one of the things the city of San Antonio does. It actually looks for other pieces of land that they can purchase so they don't pump more water out of the aquifer. So I think it's an outstanding idea, and I think that we can possibly help them pilot this particular idea to showcase, because it does have to do with economic development. That was his other question. How does it have to do with economic development? Well, when we're bringing in businesses and other communities and we have residential runoff, over in San Antonio we have what you call impervious cover. And you're limited to 20% on impervious cover limits. So when you have that runoff, it's going to contaminate your water resource. So this in itself, the educational component, is not so much selling this business, it's the idea that you're trying to convey to your community to become more conservation conscious and to turn into more renewable energies and things of alternative resources that we as a city can go out there and be the leader in this particular region. So that idea is where I came up with, and he partnered and he ran with it, and he did a phenomenal job. I'm very proud of him, so let's give him a round of applause for his presentation. It was really good. Yeah, so
No, we can
hopefully it
link
helps,
you,
and let's see how we can go from here.
we can link you like Laura Bifford, she's the CT coordinator at the school.
Yes.
So that way you can get into the schools
That'd be
and
excellent.
then, things like that, so.
That'd be excellent. That's what I need contacts, and I need to be put in front of the right people to help. They'll get this thing off the ground.
But first, really lead by example, I like that last idea. for-
Maybe putting on one of those.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Maybe
Mr.
put some,
Rodriguez and Ms. Turner.
Yeah, maybe put some
Work at
proposals.
maybe in a park or something.
That'd be awesome.
Okay?
That'd be awesome.
like, maybe like, we have a lot of space at the dog park, the skate park, and you have those little bathrooms, something mini. I see like you're talking about, like we have those bathrooms, so we can reuse some of that water for bathrooms, you can do like at
Flush.
Lodi or,
Toilet.
you know, like right
Maybe
there.
like greasy water, but.
But like Watts, you know, you can do some stuff for there, then you